Discover the incredible truth, how 47 heartwarming messages transformed her longest morning ever. Sarah's morning began like any other, but today felt different as she opened the worn kitchen drawer. The familiar scent of brewing coffee floated through the air, wrapping around her like a comforting embrace. As she sifted through the clutter, her hand brushed against something unexpected, a stack of colorful notes, their edges frayed from years of being cherished. These weren't just scraps of paper. They were echoes of gratitude from the regulars at the diner where she worked, treasures that shimmered with warmth and resilience. As her eyes skimmed the words scrawled in messy but loving handwriting, she felt a wave of emotion hit her like a thunderstorm. Each note told a story, a testament to the moments shared over pancakes and coffee, laughter and tears. The little notes celebrated a birthday or offered condolences during tough times, each one a thread weaving Sarah's life into the fabric of Maplewood. "You make every morning brighter," read one. "Thank you for always listening," another said. She could feel her chest tighten with the bitter sweetness of nostalgia and gratitude. In that instant, she decided to host an impromptu gathering at the diner that night. It would be an evening of celebrating their community, of cherishing the connections and stories that united them amid the endless grind of daily life. Excitement thrummed beneath her skin as she put up flyers, her heart racing. But as the news spread, she caught whispers of discontent among the townsfolk. Old feuds bubbled beneath the surface, like a dormant volcano ready to erupt. Two families, once intertwined, now stood coldly apart, their children hesitant to play together, their parents exchanging bitter glares. Sarah's chest clenched as old rivalries resurfaced, escalating tensions making her heart race. She was determined to create a night of joy, and yet it felt like a storm was brewing just beyond the diner's glowing neon sign. What was meant to be a celebration felt increasingly like a balancing act on a tightrope of emotional turmoil. That night, as Sarah prepared the diner for the gathering, her hands trembled. Would this be the evening of unity she hoped for, or just another reminder of what was broken? She thought of her late father and how he always believed in the power of community. "You can change your world one moment at a time," he had told her, his voice echoing in her mind. As the first group of familiar faces arrived, awkwardness hung in the air like an uninvited guest. Silence lingered, accompanied by cold glances, and her heart pounded in her chest. She wished her father were here. She needed his strength now more than ever. She had invited everyone for a fresh start, but it felt like the weight of old grievances was looming over her. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening.
YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. As the diner filled with familiar faces, shadowed by unspoken words, Sarah stood, her heart pounding and palms clammy. Could she turn this evening around? Would the love from those notes be powerful enough to transform resentment into understanding? And just as she was about to speak, she spotted Ellie's bright eyes shining with hope amid the subdued conversation. It hit her. This was not just about them. It was about the future they were building together. But would they be able to break through the walls before the night slipped away? As Sarah cleared her throat, the diner seemed to hold its breath. The clatter of dishes was silenced, conversations hushed. She could feel every pair of eyes boring into her, some filled with curiosity, others with skepticism. The smell of coffee mingled with the warm scent of freshly baked cinnamon buns, which normally brought a smile, but right now it felt heavy, like a cloud hanging over her. "Thank you all for coming," she began, her voice shaky but steady. "I know things haven't been easy between us." The words hung in the air, sparking a ripple of whispers. "But tonight, I wanted us to gather to celebrate what connects us, rather than what divides us." There was a moment of silence, just before the swell of doubt began to rise. In the far corner, John and his father exchanged pointed looks. The tension curled at Sarah's gut, twisting and turning like a coiled spring ready to snap. She directed her gaze toward Ellie, who beamed a smile of encouragement, and it gave Sarah a burst of hope. We've shared so much, and I believe we can start fresh. We all have stories, and together they weave the fabric of our community. Is this just another one of your ideas, Sarah? John's voice cut through the silence like a knife. It was sharp, filled with the bitterness of the rivalry that still lingered long after the initial feuds had begun. Look, she hesitated, dynamic emotions swirling wildly within her. We can either let history keep us apart, or we can choose to embrace the future together. She was shaking, but she stood firm. I have notes here, messages that celebrate the best of our diner family. I thought we could share them and relive the warmth that made Maplewood feel like home. A low murmur buzzed through the crowd. Sarah started to walk around, handing out the colorful notes she had found that morning. Each one told a story of connection. One was from old Miss
Jenkins, speaking of a birthday surprise organized by her son, where Sarah had brought out the cake singing in full swing. Another was from Timmy, the boy who once spilled milkshake all over himself, only to have Sarah sweep in with a laugh, a free ice cream cone, and a hug. As the crowd read the notes, small smiles began to appear. The edges of the walls that had kept them apart started to feel flimsy. Laughter echoed softly at some of the memories, but Sarah still caught glances that were less forgiving. Then Sarah took a deep breath. If we can forgive the past, we can build something better together. A flicker of recognition passed through the diner as some heads nodded slightly. It was a small victory, but in a town where pride ran high, it felt monumental. Just then, Ellie stood up, her voice ringing out. I think we can all agree that Sarah has been a constant light in our lives. I know we've all had our feuds, but aren't we tired of being at odds? A few voices murmured in agreement, and tensions seemed to lift ever so slightly. Let's not let our old grudges define us any longer, Ellie continued. Let's find a way to come together. Like Sarah says, let's start fresh. In the moment of collective reflection, something began to shift. It was as if a tide had turned, slowly sewing the fibers of the community a bit tighter. But the echoes of doubt still lurked in the corners of the room. Just as the laughter picked up again, and conversations began exchanging more warmth than anger, Sarah caught sight of movement near the entrance. Her heart sank as she saw two figures entering the diner, Nina and Mark, from the feud that had torn their families apart years ago. Would this truly be the night of healing, or an unraveling of what she had just begun to sew together? Could they still find forgiveness, or was this just the beginning of another battle? As Nina and Mark crossed the threshold, the air thickened again in the diner. Their presence felt like a storm cloud rolling in on what had started as a clear night. Sarah's heart raced as she met their eyes, trying to gauge the tension that hung in the space between them. Would they add to the healing or become the catalyst for more divisions? The chatter faded, replaced by focused stares and nervous glances. It was suddenly as if everyone held their breath, waiting for a reaction. Mark shifted uncomfortably, and Nina stood tall, her defiance almost palpable. Sarah felt a flicker of fear, but then steeled herself. She knew she had to push forward. Thank you for joining us, Nina and Mark, she called out, striving to keep her voice even. We're sharing stories tonight, the warm kind that reminds us we're all part of this community together. A flicker of doubt crossed Nina's face before she turned to Mark, who nodded almost imperceptibly. Then, with a glance at the notes in Sarah's hand, she took a step closer. Are these notes all about the good times we've shared?
Because if so, I'm afraid that doesn't cover the hurt or the bitterness. Her words were sharp, but not devoid of vulnerability. It's not just about the good, but about acknowledging what's happened, Sarah said, her heart pounding. We need to find common ground. It starts by letting go of anger. That's how we heal. Mark spoke next, almost reluctantly. You think we can just forget? It's been years of hate between our families. He glanced at Nina, who looked fierce yet fragile. What assurance do we have that anything we say here tonight matters? The diner felt heavy with silence. Sarah's eyes darted around, noticing the faces filled with unease and curiosity, but her gaze returned to Nina and Mark. Because I believe it does matter. Every story shared is a thread weaving us closer together, but we can't do that if we keep hiding from the truth. Nina paused, and to everyone's surprise, her expression softened as she spoke again. You want us to share? Fine, then I'll talk. She took a deep, steadying breath. The night our families fought was the night I learned to hate. When my dad came home bruised,
He blamed your family. It felt as if the air had been sucked out of the diner. Sarah's heart ached for Nina, recognizing the pain behind her words. Yet she could see others shifting in their seats, holding on to hope. Mark followed suit, his voice rough. I lost friends in the crossfire too. It was like living in a war zone. But being here with all of you, maybe it's time to let that go. A few murmurs rippled through the room, uncertainty mixed with a kernel of hope. Let's take a turn tonight, Sarah encouraged, her heart racing as she moved closer to the center of the diner. Let's each share a moment that connects us to one another, just like the notes. I believe we'll find that we're not so different after all. The voices, once hesitant, began to bubble up. Ellie raised her hand, excitement sparking in her eyes. I want to go first. As the room began to open up, Sarah felt warmth spread through her. Maybe they could break those old chains after all. But as she caught a glimpse of doubt flickering in John's eye, she wondered if they would ultimately succumb to their past once more. Could this truly be the shift they needed, or would old wounds tear them apart again? Ellie took a deep breath, her excitement shimmering like sunlight on water. I remember the summer after the fight, she began, her voice trembling just a bit. I was so confused. I stood on the porch, watching as our families argued. I was too young to understand why we couldn't just talk, why every word became a weapon. The diner listened, the walls almost leaning in, as if eager to soak up her memory. I remember the grass was so green that year, and the sky was bright. I wanted to be part of something, not apart from it. I wanted to play soccer with all of you, like we used to. There was a soft murmur of agreement, and Sarah could feel the atmosphere shifting.
Crisp folds of tension were starting to unravel, thread by thread. Nina stepped slightly closer, her expression softening. I was jealous of you, Ellie. You were always so happy. I wish I could share that innocence. Ellie smiled gently. But we were kids, right? We wanted to jump and run, not hate each other. Mark nodded, surprised at how the warmth of a simple childhood memory could thaw the icy stillness from moments before. Yeah, before everything exploded, I remember we actually played together. We built that tree fort. He paused, collecting his thoughts, a fragile hope beginning to take root. I never really got to apologize for what I did. It got messy, and it was my fault too. I think we can all agree on that. The air felt lighter now. Sarah watched as the room shifted, faces no longer rigid with apprehension, but soft with understanding. Ellie glanced at Mark. We can't change the past, but maybe we can start fresh. Maybe we can get some of that innocence back? Nina's lips quirked into a hesitant smile. That sounds nice. I miss playing soccer too. I miss laughing without looking over my shoulder. A ripple of laughter passed through the crowd, and for that moment, Sarah felt hope fluttering in her chest, like a vibrant bird stretching its wings after a long confinement. John, sitting in the corner, shook his head, his brow furrowing. It's not that easy. What if they never forgive us? What if everything shifts again? All it takes is one wrong word, just like before. The laughter faded, replaced by John's heavy tone. Eyes turned to him, stirring the familiar fear of how quickly they could tumble back into old habits. Sarah took a step forward, feeling the weight of everyone's gaze. Every story shared is healing, she reminded them, her voice steady. We're not erasing the past, but learning from it. We are stronger together, one voice at a time. Slowly, Mark and Nina nodded, emboldened by the building momentum in the room. Sarah could sense past pains mingling with this new turning, like a storm finally breaking. She could feel that change was inevitable. As she stood there amidst the stirring hope, Sarah smiled. How about we take a moment? She raised her hand slightly, hoping to recenter the energy. Let's each think of one person here tonight that we can reach out to after this, someone we can mend ties with. Not just stories, but real connections. The diner fell into thoughtful silence, deep breaths mingling as everyone pondered. Sarah's heart echoed within her chest. There was a collective weight to bear, but also a shimmer of promise. Could they truly forge a new path? Would this spark create lasting relationships, or would they find themselves trapped in the past once more? Just then, an unexpected voice called out from the back of the diner. Hey, is this some kind of joke? The voice was gruff, cutting through the hopeful buzz that had begun to fill the diner. It came from a familiar figure who had slipped in unnoticed, standing at the arching entrance. Brad, the once untouchable jock, leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed tightly. The atmosphere shifted again, tension seeping back in. Nobody knew how to react. "Brad," Ellie started, uncertain whether to be frightened or relieved. "What's this about?" he continued, his gaze roaming over the crowd. "You all acting like it's a therapy session or something?" He scoffed, but the uncertainty in his eyes betrayed his facade. Mark clenched his fists, and Sarah sensed the old divisions threatening to resurface. "We're trying to have an honest conversation, Brad. We're trying to move on," he said, his voice steady yet tinged with frustration. Brad took a step forward, a challenge in his posture. "Move on, huh? You really think that can happen? You think any of this makes sense?" "We were just kids back then," Ellie pleaded, her voice rising above the brewing tension. "We want to understand each other now." "Understand?" Brad laughed bitterly. "You think by sitting around the table and sharing memories we can forget the hurt, the words, the fights?" Nina turned, her expression softening. "Maybe it's a start, Brad. We've all made mistakes. It's about forgiveness and moving past them." "Forgiveness doesn't erase history," he snapped. "It doesn't change the fact that things happened the way they did. You think a couple of stories will fix all that?" His words hung heavy in the air, echoing the doubt many felt. For a moment, everyone fell silent, the room once again thick with uncertainty. "Look," Sarah spoke, her voice calm but firm. "We're not asking for miracles. We're simply trying to reconnect. We all need each other, not just for the good, but to face the hard parts together." Brad hesitated, the anger on his face beginning to soften. For the first time, doubt flickered in his eyes. Ellie took an uncertain step forward. "We've hurt each other, Brad, but maybe we can turn it around." At that, community murmurs began to bubble again. "What if you just faced it?" a nearby voice piped up. "Talk it out. Show how you feel." Brad's posture slackened slightly, just enough for a crack in his defensive walls. "I don't know if I can just forget," he finally admitted, his voice quieter now. "I don't know how to change." Mark nodded, stepping up. "None of us do. We just know that we have to try. We owe it to ourselves and maybe even to those who look up to us now." Sarah watched as the layers of emotional tension peeled back slowly, like ice melting under the sun. Maybe there was real possibility here, a flicker of resolve igniting amidst the fear. But as Brad wrestled with his thoughts, she could feel the moment teetering on the edge of something monumental. "Trying might just be enough," she said, pushing against the doubt in her chest. Just then, an unexpected message pinged on her phone, illuminating the table with a soft glow.
The text wasn't from anyone she recognized, but it read, "I have something important to share about all of you. Meet me at the old park tomorrow." All eyes darted toward her, and a fresh wave of curiosity washed over the group. The diner was suddenly alive again with wonder and apprehension. Who could this be? Why the old park? A chance meeting tomorrow could change everything. Would they dare to unlock the past further, or would it lead them to something new? The diner buzzed with whispers, the air electric with unanswered questions. Sarah's hand trembled slightly as she stared at her phone. Who on earth would summon them to the old park, and why now? "Do you think it's someone we know?" Ellie broke the silence, her earlier resolve faltering. "Maybe it's someone from high school who wants to help, or someone who wants to stir up trouble," Brad interjected, his tone sharp, not entirely unfounded. His brow was furrowed, the earlier softness replaced by the weight of uncertainty. Mark rubbed the back of his neck, glancing between the faces that surrounded him. "We need to know what this is about," he said, trying to rally the group's scattered focus. "If we're going to reconnect, we can't leave loose ends hanging." A couple of nods rippled through the crowd like a wave. The thought of old wounds reopening was daunting, but the curiosity, the need to understand, was stronger. "I'm in," Nina declared, her voice firm. "Whatever it is, it can't be worse than what we've been through already." Brad's eyes flicked over to her, a mix of surprise and something softer lurking behind his annoyance. Maybe he saw what she saw, something worth risking a leap into the unknown. "Fine," he sighed, dropping his arms, "but I swear if it's another trip down memory lane, I'm out." Mark smiled faintly, a small victory. "We'll make it worthwhile then. Tomorrow we meet at the park. Let's see what this person wants." As the group began to disperse, Ellie caught Sarah's eye. "Hey," she said quietly, stepping closer. Do you think this is connected to everything we've been talking about? The past? Us? Sarah sighed, taking a moment to gather her thoughts. I don't know, but it feels significant. If we really want to move forward, we might have to face whatever this is. I hope it's worth it, Ellie whispered. I really do. Later that evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Sarah lay on her bed, staring at the ceiling. The day's tension swirled in her mind like autumn leaves caught in the wind. She had never expected this reunion would lead to such a cascade of emotions. It felt as if they were on the brink of something monumental, yet anxiety clawed at the edges of her hope. Images of the past drifted through her thoughts, laughter, arguments, the thrill of triumph, and the depths of heartache. How could everything be tied to those unforgettable years? And who was this anonymous messenger?
The moonlight spilled into her room, casting soft shadows as she turned to her bedside table, picking up the phone again. Just a random prank, she whispered to herself, but the tightness in her chest suggested otherwise. As sleep finally began to take hold, Sarah felt a gentle gnaw of urgency. It was as if the universe was preparing them for a conclusion, something that might finally bring peace or ignite new conflict. Would tomorrow's revelation heal them, or would it drive them further apart? And just like that, she drifted off, caught between hope and dread. The next day arrived, bright and clear, but Sarah felt the weight of anticipation press down on her, an unshakable certainty that everything was about to change. As she approached the park, she scanned the trees for familiar faces, not knowing what lay ahead, but certain the truth was waiting to be unveiled. What would that truth reveal about their pasts and their futures? The park looked different in the daylight. The trees, once gnarled and foreboding, now stood strong, their leaves whispering secrets in the gentle breeze. Sarah inhaled deeply, savoring the mixture of fresh grass and wildflowers. This was a place filled with memories, and today it felt almost alive, buzzing with expectation. As she stepped onto the gravel path, her heart raced. She spotted Ellie first, pacing near the old swing set. The air between them filled with unsaid words, a shared understanding of the weight they carried. Ellie turned, and her anxious smile softened some of Sarah's tension. Hey, Ellie said, fidgeting with her bracelet. Do you think we're really ready for this? I don't know, Sarah admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. But we can't avoid it forever. They were soon joined by Mark and Nina, both wearing expressions that flickered between determination and trepidation. Each step brought them closer to the epicenter of their unresolved pasts, a looming feeling that they were about to touch something they had long buried. The world outside felt quieter, as if holding its breath, waiting for the truth to emerge. A rustle shattered the silence. They turned as Brad approached, his posture tense, hands shoved deep into his pockets. Sarah caught his eye and saw flickers of apprehension and resolution, a mirror of her own emotions. He cleared his throat, breaking the uneasy quiet. So, what do you think they want? Let's just find out, Mark replied, his voice firm. We need to face whatever it is together. Then came a soft voice that made Sarah's pulse quicken. Across the field, a figure emerged from the shadows of the trees, stepping into the sunlight. Sarah squinted, her heart skipping a beat. It was Jess, the girl who had moved away in senior year, leaving behind whispers, unfinished stories, and lingering feelings. What is she doing here? Brad muttered, the question hanging heavy in the air. But Sarah couldn't take her eyes off Jess. She looked different, older, but still recognizable. Jess looked vulnerable, yet determined, her gaze fixed on the group with a mixture of hope and trepidation. Hey, everyone, Jess called out, her voice steady but nervous. I'm here to explain. The group fell silent, uncertainty washing over them. This was the moment Sarah had both dreaded and longed for. Jess approached slowly, each step charged with unresolved tension. As she got closer, Sarah noticed something glistening in Jess's hands, a box, tightly wrapped with a fraying ribbon. Feeling a mix of excitement and dread, Sarah exchanged glances with the others. What truth could Jess possibly bring? What if it changed everything they thought they knew about the past and themselves? Jess looked at each of them, her eyes glimmering with unshed tears. I know this isn't easy, and I'm sorry for how things ended. Just then, a loud crack echoed through the park as a branch broke above, sending leaves cascading down like confetti. The moment felt suspended in time. Jess opened the box and pulled out a bundle of faded letters. These were supposed to be shared long ago. They could change everything.
Sarah's breath caught in her throat, her heart pounding as the weight of the unspoken suddenly bore down on them. What lay within those letters? What pieces of their past were about to unfold? The group leaned in, tension palpable as they awaited the answer that could shift their lives forever. What was written within those pages would reveal not only hidden truths, but also the paths they might choose to follow from here. And as Jess prepared to read, a chill whispered through the air, leaving Sarah to wonder if destiny was finally ready to unravel its secrets. Would they be ready to confront the reality that lay hidden in those letters? As Jess held the letters, the sunlight caught the edges, illuminating the stories contained within. An almost electric hush fell over the group, charged with anticipation. Sarah's pulse raced, her thoughts spiraling through the labyrinth of her memories. What secrets had Jess carried all these years? "Do we really want to uncover this?" asked Brad, his voice trembling slightly. Despite his bravado, the tension in his posture revealed his fear. "Yes," Sarah found herself answering, the conviction surprising even her. "We have to know. We can't keep running from the past." Nina stepped closer to Jess, eyes wide and searching. "Please, just tell us what they say." Jess nodded and took a deep breath, holding the first letter carefully as if it were a fragile artifact. "I wrote these during the summer before I moved. Her voice faltered for a moment. "I was afraid. I left without explaining, not just to you guys, but to myself too." The nostalgia was thick in the air, wrapping around them much like the gentle breeze rustling through the leaves. Jess unfolded the first letter, her fingers trembling just slightly.
The group leaned in, their collective breaths held in a moment of reverence. "I remember the day we all piled into Mark's truck for that road trip." Jess's voice broke as she started reading. "You were all there, and I was so happy. But it scared me. I felt everything so intensely. I was scared of what that meant." A tear slid down Jess's cheek, and Sarah's heart ached at the sight. She never realized how much Jess had carried alone. The weight of their shared past was creating ripples in the present. "What you felt, we all felt it," Ellie murmured, her eyes glistening as she recalled their youthful bond. "But we never talked about it." The letters painted vivid pictures, stories lost to time yet brimming with heartfelt confessions and dreams. Each word was like a thread pulling them tighter together, interweaving strands of fear, longing, and love. Jess read on, opening up pieces of her heart that she had kept locked away. "I didn't just leave my friends," she continued, her voice growing steadier. "I left a part of myself behind. I was afraid of being vulnerable, of letting you see who I really was." Mark looked at Jess, an unguarded sadness in his eyes. "We all struggled. We didn't realize we were each waiting for the other to open up." Jess nodded, and for a moment they were back in that fleeting summer, the golden days when everything seemed possible. Sarah felt it too, the aching desire to turn back time, to gather those pieces of themselves and put them back together. "Here's another," Jess continued, her voice catching once more. The tears fell freely now, and so did the barriers between them. "I wanted you to know how much you all meant to me. You were my sanctuary, and I didn't say goodbye." As she read the next letter, emotions swirled around them. Nostalgia, regret, love, and the dawning realization that their connections had never truly faded. The weight of the unspoken past began to lift, replaced by the bright, uncomfortable light of truth. Yet with each letter Jess read, it became clear that their shared journey wasn't entirely done. The path ahead was blurry, filled with choices they hadn't anticipated. Finally, Jess folded the last letter and looked at them, her gaze fierce yet vulnerable. "These letters were meant to reconnect us, but they also point to something we might not be ready for. The truth we uncover today might reshape our future." Sarah's heart thudded with a mixture of excitement and dread. The finality of those words lingered in the air, thick with possibility. "What comes next?" Nina asked, breaking the silence that had enveloped them. Feeling the weight of the moment, Sarah glanced at her friends. What were they willing to risk for the sake of healing? Could they bridge the gaps that time had widened? Just as Jess opened her mouth to respond, a sudden noise erupted from the depths of the park, an urgent sound that cut through the fragile atmosphere they had built. The future felt just within grasp, yet in an instant it threatened to slip away. "What was that?" Sarah exclaimed, heart racing again. And as they turned toward the source of the disturbance, the warmth of their earlier connection flickered, uncertainty creeping back in. Would they step forward together, or were they about to push each other away once more? The noise grew louder, a cacophony of rustling branches and hurried footsteps. Sarah felt a frisson of anxiety shoot through her, the warmth of the moment evaporating like morning dew in the sun. Jess's grip on the letters tightened, and the others instinctively drew closer,
forming a protective circle around her. "What's going on?" Mark asked, his eyes darting around the park, searching for the source of the ruckus. Suddenly, a figure burst into view, wild-eyed and breathless. It was Matthew, an old friend from high school, someone they hadn't seen in years. His wild hair whipped around him as he sprinted toward them, panic etched across his face. "Guys!" he shouted, halting in front of them, chest heaving. "You won't believe who I just saw." "What are you talking about?" Nina stepped forward, worry knitting her brow. "He's back! Jake is back!" Matthew's voice tumbled over itself in excitement. The name hung in the air, heavy with unsaid feelings, stirring memories all at once. A ripple of shock surged through the group. Jake had been the heart of their circle before everything changed, a friend who had left without a word. Sarah's mind raced. She had thought of him countless times, wanting to reach out but never knowing what to say. "Are you serious?" Jess whispered, her voice barely audible. The letters still clutched in her hand trembled like she was holding on to the past, yet it felt simultaneously fleeting. "I just saw him at the diner on Main Street," Matthew continued, eyes wide with urgency. "He looked different, but it was definitely him. He was asking about you all. I couldn't just ignore it. I had to come find you." Sarah's heart quickened. Was this a coincidence, or some cosmic twist of fate? The world felt small and vast all at once. They had just begun to peel back layers of their own history, yet another thread was about to weave itself into their evolving story. "What do we do?" Brad questioned, running a hand through his hair as uncertainty settled in. The tension in the air thickened. They had spent years walking carefully along the edges of their emotions, avoiding the raw truths that defined them. Now their paths were diverging again, poised at a crossroads. Reuniting with Jake could mean reigniting painful memories, or maybe it was a chance for closure. "We have to talk to him," Jess said, her voice more resolute now. "Brave enough?" Sarah echoed, feeling a knot form in her throat. The idea of seeing Jake sent a rush of fear through her. What would she even say?
Would it open old wounds or allow for healing? "It's our choice," Jess reminded her. There was a weight of wisdom in her voice that resonated deeply. Jess understood now the strength it took to confront their pasts. As the group stood there, uncertainty bubbling and veering toward affirmation, Sarah noticed the sunlight filtering through the trees, casting warm patches on their skin. It clicked in her mind that perhaps the past wouldn't need to be a burden. Maybe this was a chance for them all to heal. "Okay," Sarah said, her own resolve firming. "Let's go find him." With a nod from the group, they set off, hearts racing like the summer wind. The road stretched out ahead, filled with potential. But even with each determined step, Sarah felt a quickening inside her. Was this the end of their unease, or just the beginning of something even more complicated? As they made their way toward the diner, another thought flickered in the back of Sarah's mind. What if Jake had returned to change everything they thought they knew about each other? What if the truth they had been dancing around was just the tip of the iceberg? Those questions hung around them, heavy with promise and dread, as they approached a familiar place that once held so many memories. The diner stood before them, just as they remembered, its neon sign buzzing softly in the waning afternoon light. But today, it felt different. The air shimmered with anticipation, a strange blend of nostalgic warmth and anxious power. Sarah's heart drummed against her ribs as she stepped through the familiar entrance, her friends falling in step behind her. Inside, the clinking of dishes and the hum of chatter wrapped around them, creating a vibrant contrast to the silence they just shared about the past. The place felt like a portal, pulling them back to laughter-filled mornings and cozy evenings. And there he was, Jake. He sat at the counter, his back turned to them, an untouched plate of food languishing in front of him. In an unpredictable sense, he resembled the boy they all knew, yet as if life had smudged the edges of the picture. He had grown into himself, but his presence was layered with memories, the good, the bad, and the unfinished. Sarah inhaled sharply, emotions crashing over her like a wave. This was it. They would face their shared history, raw and unfiltered. "Is he really back?" Brad whispered, disbelief lacing his voice. Jess stepped forward, her determination gleaming. "We need to talk to him." "Together," Sarah added, the word escaping her lips with an unexpected steadiness. They had all shared something powerful, a bond that was about to be rekindled. With tentative steps, they approached the counter. Jake remained unaware of their presence until a familiar voice broke the space. "Jake?" Jess said softly, almost as if she were afraid of breaking the spell. Slowly, he turned around, his gaze locking onto Jess's face. A flicker of recognition danced in his eyes, a shadow of the youthful connection they once shared. "Jess?" he breathed, and the name hung in the air, laden with implications. The moment stretched. Emotions ricocheted off one another like pinballs. Before she could stop herself, Sarah spoke, a rush of courage coursing through her. "We all missed you." His eyes widened as if each word was a lifeline thrown across turbulent waters. "I didn't expect to see all of you." He paused, visibly taken aback. "Neither did we," Mark said, his tone measured but edged with hope, ready to take the plunge. "We've been talking about everything." "About the past," Nina added, stepping forward. "We want to reconcile, but we also want to understand why you left." Jake looked down momentarily, his fingers toying with the edge of the untouched plate. I didn't know how to face you all. I was scared. I didn't want to deal with everything that went down." "Neither did we," Ellie replied, her voice steadier than she felt. "We all carried the weight of what happened." He glanced back up, vulnerability radiating from him. "I kept thinking about the memories we shared, but I also felt that I would never find a way back. The fear of reopening old wounds held me back." Sarah's heart ached, realizing the tether of grief and misunderstanding they had all held on to. The letters Jess had brought, the unspoken stories, they were all part of a tapestry woven with fragility and yearning. "We need to talk about them," Sarah continued, her voice gathering momentum. "And not just the happy memories, but the hard ones too. That's how we heal." Jake hesitated, but hope flickered in his eyes, igniting an ember. "I'm willing to listen, to unpack it. I want to face it all with you, together." As the words left him, the remnants of their old rivalry began to fade. The shared air became lighter, filled with tentative trust. "We're all here because we want to mend what was broken," Jess said, her gaze sincere. "I thought it was impossible," Jake admitted, "but seeing all of you here right now, it fills me with hope." A soft smile emerged among the group, each of them sharing a universal relief. It was a fragile, beautiful acknowledgement that they were not just echoing each other's hurts, they were granting space for understanding, compassion, and the potential for a brighter future. "I'm so sorry for leaving you all behind," he said, voice trembling with sincerity. And just like that, with unguarded vulnerability, they began to bridge the divide. Words came flowing freely. Stories that had long been suppressed spilled forth like spring rain nourishing long simmering roots. As Sarah listened, she didn't just hear, she felt. Each laugh, each tear, each moment was a step toward healing. Slowly, it felt like the diner itself was coming alive with their voices. Old wounds felt less like scars and more like stories waiting to be honored. With laughter ringing through the air, they reflected on cherished memories, pool games, summer nights, those carefree moments that made them whole before the fracture set in. Then they turned to the harder truths, the arguments, the miscommunication, the regrets. Yet, woven amidst that tapestry of joy and sorrow was a burgeoning sense of community, one that blossomed in the warmth of forgiveness. The weight of the past lessened, replaced with shared harmony. As the afternoon transitioned into evening, the diner took on a golden hue, warm light bathing their faces. Sarah felt hope dance like fireflies, illuminating the path ahead. They had collectively chosen to embrace their history, and in doing so, forged a bond that felt stronger than ever. "We can start fresh," Ellie declared, looking around the group. "This isn't just about healing old hurts, it's about creating new memories." "Together," Mark added, grinning. And they smiled, feeling the weight of uncertainty lift from their shoulders. As they finished their meals and laughter filled the diner, it felt not just like a reunion, it was the birth of something remarkable, a new community, one that embraced both the light and shadows of their past, while marching forward together into an undeniable future. In that moment, Sarah realized that while their journey had been paved with challenges, the true magic lay in their willingness to rise together, stitch the fabric of their lives anew, and allow hope to bloom like wildflowers after a storm. With hearts full of connection and joy, they left the diner that evening, ready to meet whatever lay ahead, together as a family. So remember, the past does not need to define you.
Embrace those you love and nurture those connections. Reflect, communicate, and grow. And now it's your turn. Don't just stop here. Take this journey of connection to heart. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and let your voice be heard. Comment your reactions and feelings about the ending. Let us know how it touched you. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait not even one more second to share. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.